Today I'm going to be talking about W.H. Auden and his text, his poem, Lullaby. And so he was born Wystan Hugh Auden in York, England on February 21st, 1907. He was the son of a physician father and a strictly religious Anglican mother. And he initially pursued science and engineering at Oxford before he found his calling to write and switched his major to English. He pursued his love of poetry, heavily influenced by Old English verse. That's like the Beowulf times, Cadman's hymn, way back in the beginning of 203 when we studied that early Old English poetry, as well as the poems of Thomas Hardy, which was a contemporary, Robert Frost, an American contemporary writer, William Blake from the Romantic period, Emily Dickinson from Romantic/Victorian period. Graduated from Oxford in 1928. In that same year, his collection Poems was privately printed. And then he, along with T.S. Eliot, a couple of years later, 1930, he published another collection of the same name, so Poems again. I know that's a really catchy title, but it had different content inside of it. And then this collection was very successful, and it made him one of the leading influencers in literature in the 20th century. His poems in the latter half of the 30s were more politically based. He was really drawn to politically torn countries. He wrote Spain, which was an anthology based on his firsthand accounts of Spain's Civil War from 1936 to 1939. He was in love with language and the way that it was used. And so really, he is known for his ability to write poems in almost every verse form, which is a huge accomplishment. You think about all the ones that we've talked about over the course of really these 2 semesters. We've talked about all these different forms, poetry forms, and to be able to kind of pop in and out and choose different ones of those to use and write them successfully and be known for that is a really kind of a big deal. His work has influenced aspiring poets, popular culture, vernacular speech. He said in an essay once, a poet is, before anything else, a person who is passionately in love with language, and that's definitely something that he is known for. After he moved to America, and his work kind of shifted away from political to be more religious and spiritual. He published Another Time, which is a collection of poems that features some of his most popular. He published that here in America, September 1st, 1939. One of those poems, Musée des Beaux-Arts, is another one of those poems that he's best known for. He won the Pulitzer Prize in 1948 for The Age of Anxiety. He was, in addition to poetry, distinguished playwright as well. He wed Erica Mann, who was the daughter of German novelist Thomas Mann in 1935. They didn't last very long. Mann was trying to gain British citizenship and flee Nazi Germany. And Auden he was not attracted to women. And so to be that at that time, to be a homosexual at this time was, it was criminal. For a long time, he was kind of gay at a time when it was criminalized in the UK. Like, you could be punished by going to jail all the way up until 1967. And so this marriage was kind of like a cover and a beard and for him and to keep him on the right side of the law there in England. He visited Germany, Iceland, and China, and then in 1939 moved to the United States. And here he met his true love, fellow poet Chester Coleman, and became an American citizen. So, with his health waning in 1972, he left America, moved back to Oxford, spent his last days in Austria where he owned a house, and he died in Vienna, Austria on September 29th, 1973. All right, so today we're going to be talking about Lullaby. Published in 1937 while he was living in England. You know, a lullaby, of course, is a song that's used to sing someone or soothe someone to sleep, especially a baby or a young child. And he kind of like turns that on its head in this poem because he is not addressing a child, he's addressing a lover, and he or she is already asleep. So interestingly enough, at this time, scholars kind of thought possibly that with this poem, he was trying to seduce the very famous Benjamin Britten, who was a composer, one of the 20th century's greatest composers, British composers. And so they thought maybe this poem was kind of a love poem, because that's what it is in nature. It's a love poem here. But while it is a love poem, it's also kind of turns a few of those conventions of the typical love poem kind of on its head. So let's read, and then we will discuss. Okay. Lay your sleeping head, my love, a human on my faithless arm. Time and fevers burn away individual beauty from thoughtful children, and the grave proves the child ephemeral. But in my arms till break of day, let the living creature lie, mortal, guilty, but to me that the entirely beautiful. Soul and body have no bounds to lovers as they lie upon her tolerant enchanted slope in their ordinary swoon. Grave the vision Venus sends of supernatural sympathy, universal love and hope, while an abstract insight wakes among the glaciers and the rocks, the hermit's sensual ecstasy. Certainty, fidelity, on the stroke of midnight pass, like vibrations of a bell. And fashionable madmen raise their pedantic, boring cry. Every farthing of the cost, all the dreaded cards foretell, shall be paid. But from this night, not a whisper, not a thought, not a kiss nor look be lost. Beauty, midnight vision dies. Let the winds of dawn that blow softly round your dreaming head such a day of sweetness show. Eye and knocking heart may bless. Find the mortal world enough. Noons of dryness see you fed by the involuntary powers. Nights of insults let you pass, watched by every human love. In stanza 1, he's addressing his sleeping lover, who is sleeping with his head on his faithless arm. It's interesting that he chooses that there. Faithless suggests that someone has lost faith. But it may be someone who's lost faith in love. His faithless arm, so he's the guy that the sleeper is laying his head on. Maybe he has lost faith in love, but he's committed to living in the moment, and that's what this poem kind of is all about. Faithless also could be a nod to why they're there together in the first place. You know, he talks about certainty, fidelity, disappearing at the stroke of midnight a little later on. So this could be like a casual fling between two lovers who are married to other people as well. Just a thought, food for thought. So he knows that beauty is fleeting. He knows that it will not last forever. So right now, this young man or woman is beautiful. But eventually time and illness are going to destroy that beauty of youth, and death obviously will follow. But you're not young for long, right? So seize the day. Our lifespan is too soon is too soon over. What matters then is the here and now. The speaker kind of addresses someone else within that too. He says, but in my arms till break of day, let the living creature lie, mortal guilty, but to me the entirely beautiful. Almost like as if he is addressing some god or a higher power, asking that his living creature be allowed to remain there until morning, not be taken away from him. He's aware then that the creature he loves is a mere mortal and is not perfect, guilty of man sins and mortal flaws. But to him, he or she is entirely beautiful. To me, the entirely beautiful. Stanza 2. The speaker then turns to more supernatural and divine ideas of love. So the syntax and punctuation are a little more complex here, but than the first stanza. But he's saying that lovers who lie upon the slope or hill of Venus, which is the Roman goddess of love, are sent a grave vision of universal love. This is grave because it is deeply felt and deeply serious. It says, grave the vision Venus sends, a supernatural sympathy. Even the hermit, he says, living alone and cut off from society, is affected by love. The glaciers and rocks of his stone cold heart can be thawed and warmed by love's powers. In stanza 3, continues to elevate the moment, this night. This is significant and filled with meaning. You know, certainty that one's lover will remain faithful, and fidelity, one's own faithfulness to one's lover, are both fleeting. They're going to pass on the stroke of midnight like the tolling of a bell. But what matters is tonight. And he doesn't want to miss anything. The reference there, pedantic, boring cry, fashionable madman, is very cryptic. Could be referring to the poem's context, given that it's the 1930s. So you've got Hitler, Mussolini, Franco, political leaders, that are happening, fashionable madmen. Or it could be a nod to John Donne's great poem, The Sun Rising, which begins with him laying in bed with his lover at the break of day and kind of reprimanding the sun for shining through the curtains and telling him and his lover they have to get up. So possibly there, that could be what that. He says what he's talking about, all the dreaded cards foretell shall be paid. Every farthing of the cost, all the dreaded cards foretell shall be paid. He says that is because everything that has to be paid, all pleasures carry a certain debt, will be paid. All that can happen, but it doesn't have to happen right now. All right. In the final stanza, beauty, midnight vision dies. He continues that sentiment that we've seen in the previous stanza. All things are going to pass. Beauty, the night, vision is going to die. He picks up those three things that he's already specifically mentioned in the other stanzas: the beauty of his lover, the stroke of midnight, and the vision that Venus sends to lovers lying on her ancient hill. If morning must come, as he knows it must, he at least asks that at least be the dawn of a day which offers hope and blessing to the lovers. Overall hopeful, but he's still remaining aware of the impermanence of their relationship. All these things are going to come to pass. Let the winds of dawn that blow softly round your dreaming head such a day of sweetness show. I and knocking heart may bless, find the mortal world enough. So, he's hopeful that maybe they'll last forever, but if they don't, he's going to appreciate and cherish this moment that they had together while they were together for however long that's going to be.